All right. Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, so it is ChatGPT day, and I want to share with you a way that you can use ChatGPT to help you understand your podcast analytics, your podcast downloads, so on and so forth, to use your downloads, not just to go, oh, not enough. I didn't get enough attention to my podcast didn't get enough attention today or this week. Oh, we got a whole bunch more. Yay, that's exciting. To go deeper into your analytics so you can learn from the trends that are happening in your podcast episodes so you can grow your podcast according to these trends and what your listeners likely are liking and not liking and resonating with your episodes. So we're using ChatGPT as an assistant to help us do that today. think it's primarily going to be a text day. Normally I use the voice function, but because this is based on analytics, we're going to need to read a little bit. So it might not be the prettiest visual, but I think it's important to see what you can do with ChatGPT with your information from your podcast host. The podcast I'm going to share with you today, aka right now, is the I want to show you the website, actually. This is one of my clients, and yes, he has authorized me to share this with you, which is lovely. Thank you, Paul. Hi, Paul. The Not Boring Small Business Bookkeeping and Accounting Podcast. I will have the link to his podcast in the video notes, so you can peruse it should you wish to, and I'm guessing you probably will. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to dig into the analytics. So I'm going to go into stats, and we're going to look at all-time analytics. So he actually has more analytics than this. He had the podcast for a year before we found each other, and on a different platform, and then we transferred him over. So this is only the second year of the podcast itself. So this is the analytics for the second year, and I love the lovely upward trajectory that the podcast is taking. And if you listen to it, you'll know why. So we're going to look at all of this data, but within ChatGPT. So let's do this. My first prompt is, can you help me understand general trends in this podcast? Download report, please. So this is the report here. Depending on the podcast host that you have, they could have a variety of different ways to get the usually CSV file of your podcast data. And all that means is it's a file that computers can read. That's it. CSV is not super fancy. If anything, it looks quite rudimentary because it's not a graph like what you saw with Paul's analytics there. It is more of, there we go. It is more of the computer readable information. And let me just say this first before we dive into what ChatGPT is going to tell us, is that your analytics, your podcast downloads are, how should I say this? They're one way to look at your podcast. If you have a business podcast, for example, by all means, have your, I'm still waiting for my new boom arm to come, so that's why. Yeah, you're seeing that. Why my microphone is being held that way. You should have a return on investment that makes sense for your podcast, for your project. If it's to generate leads for your business, then you should be keeping track of who's coming to you via the podcast. If it should be to monetize the podcast on whatever platform you're monetizing on, that those indicators, that income that is coming in from those platforms should be your indicator. Your downloads are just general trends in what's happening with your podcast. Very few people actually need their downloads as far as to interpret their podcast goals, unless your goal is to advertise. That is the one time that podcast downloads are the most important thing. And even then, yeah, we could talk about that, but I don't generally deal with advertisements in podcasts. I usually help small business owners or community leaders build up their community so they can do what their specific goal is, whether it is to bring in clients or to bring in community members, whether it be a paid membership or a non-paid membership, and so on and so forth. So downloads are not the be all and end all. That's what I meant to say. All right, let's just dive in. Let's dive in. Share ChatGPT. So my prompt was, could you please help me understand general trends? And I'm going to very lightly go into this. I'm not going to read every word that ChatGPT said because that would be super boring. But it noticed 3 key trends. Newer episodes get more recent downloads. Longer term downloads accumulate. And recent episodes show higher short-term engagement. Oh, I like that last one. What does that last one mean? I am going to read a little bit more for that. A sharper drop in downloads after the first 30 days. So episodes from this year. It's only mid-February, so that's not too worrying. There isn't a whole lot of data there yet. In contrast, older episodes, December 2024, have steadier but lower ongoing engagement. Steadier but longer. Okay, that's a really good thing to know. So maybe Paul and I need to have a chat about the content of the podcast episodes. He did do a change in content recently, so maybe we need to talk about, okay, is that change? How much longer do we want to wait to find the newer audience for the newer content that he's producing versus going back to the older content that his current listeners are used to. So when you make a change in content, there's always the potential that it's going to take a while for people to find your episodes when you make that change. So I'm not surprised about that. It was a pretty recent change. So that actually makes sense. And then Chatty says, would you like a more detailed breakdown, like identifying the most consistently performing episodes or patterns? Oh, yes, please. So I'm going to say yes. I don't know if we'll get to visualization today. The output that Chatty does, that's what I call ChatGPT, the output that Chatty does in situations like this, or in these kinds of prompts, is really hit and miss. Sometimes it's spot on and really helpful, and sometimes it's not. You really want to have the questions that you want to know, the things you want to know ready, so that you can ask ChatGPT and analyze what it's giving you. So don't just take what it says as the ultimate answer to it. You really want to analyze it, look at the statistics, look at the downloads themselves, and say, does that make sense? Is that true, or is ChatGPT hallucinating, which does happen. So here we go. So there's detailed podcast download insights, top recent episodes, last 7 days. And so they list the top episodes as well as the downloads that are coming from them. This is a newer episode, bookkeeping ethics and fair pricing. That's gotten a lot. Yeah, which makes sense. That is a more recent episode. So there's going to be a jump when a new episode is released. And the takeaway, I'll read that. The latest episode is performing significantly better than the rest. Good. That is a good sign. Older episodes receive fewer but consistent downloads. That's beautiful. That means, and you really want to look at that. You really want to look at not just what your downloads are the first 7 days and 30 days and 90 days. So Actually, day 1, day 7, and day 30 are super important. Day 1 are your hardcore listeners. Day 7 are the pretty avid listeners, but not the first day, gotta listen to this now listeners. And within 30 days, those are the listeners that like your episodes, but maybe will listen to some episodes, but not all of them. So that's kind of the characteristics of those. But what ChatGPT is saying is that people are coming back and listening to the older episodes throughout time. It's not just when they're published. That's a beautiful thing to notice. And it's a beautiful thing to have in a podcast, because that means that people are going back to the older content because they value the current content. Beautiful. Love it. Top all-time performing episodes. These episodes have most downloads overall. Holy cow. Yeah, startup expenses. That one has always been a popular one here, as well as over on his YouTube channel. And I'll leave that information there. Takeaways. I like these. 2 takeaways. These are likely evergreen topics that stay relevant over time. Fair. If you haven't already, consider repurposing these topics into newer formats. Aw, Chatty's got my heart right there. I love repurposing. The next bit of information it's giving us is consistently performing episodes, strong 90-day engagement, and takeaway. There's 2 takeaways from those. Episodes with the slowest decline. Oh, that's beautiful. Evergreen potential. And they list those. These topics continue to resonate. You might want to create follow-up content or expand on these themes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Where is my face? Where is my face? People, do you see this? You can look at your chart and you can look at your numbers, at your downloads, and you can look at it on the podcast host and you can pull these out. But to have this kind of list just boom, available within a few minutes on the free version of ChatGPT is priceless. I mean, what can you do with this information? You can plan your content, your future content around this. You can, again, what it mentioned, repurpose the specific ones that have the long-term reach, the long tail. You can do all kinds of other things based on that and also link back to the episodes, therefore getting even more eyes and ears on it, depending on if you have audio or video podcasts. So, I mean, there's so much. There's one more thing I want to try out that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So I'm not going to pretend this is definitely going to work, but I'm going to ask it, what visualizations can you make with this data? Sometimes it blips and sometimes it shows something very cool. So let's see what it does this time. It's not giving me visualizations. Oh, okay. Download trends over time, top performing, download retention rate, episode release impact. I'm not on my regular keyboard right now. Why can't I spell? Oh, my keyboard actually reverted back to, never mind. Yeah. Which of these will help me plan future episodes? That's what I want to find with these. So it gave me 5 choices for visualizations. And so I want to know which one will help me. And it says, yes, it says, here are the 3. And it says, do you want me to generate these? And I say, yes. Let's see what it does. This is usually the point where it either glitches or produces some magic. I did something similar to this on the last season of Sane and Simple Podcasting with April from Doorkey Podcast, so please do check out that season. We have a full episode on downloads. Oh, see? I told you, this is normally where it glitches. I can guide you through the visualizations and help you with Python. No, thank you. There's a reason why I'm not coding this, because I am not a big fan of coding. All right. So I think just with the prompts in this episode already, in this video already, in this audio already, depending on how you're viewing this, consuming this, I think you've already got some powerful stuff you can do with your podcast downloads, just downloading them from your podcast host, uploading them to ChatGPT. I'm so excited I can't talk. Upload them to ChatGPT with the simple prompt, can you help me understand general trends in this podcast report, please? And then follow up with any questions and with your particular goals. What do you want help with? Do you want help with planning future episodes? Do you want help understanding what really resonated with your audience so you can make repurposed material based on those episodes? Like what do you want to do with this? Do you want to, there's other reports. This is the general overview report from Buzzsprout. There's a location report. There was a devices report. So you could upload those and ask them questions about where people are listening to your podcast or what locations are they listening from. Look, you could throw a report at ChatGPT and just talk to it. Say, hey, what can you tell me about this? Tell me some information. How can this help me do X, Y, and Z? And boom, you'll get some information. Analyze the information because we do not trust Chatty completely. It is an assistant, not a worker. And do what you will and help your podcast grow with doing less work, because ChatGPT is going to do the heavy lifting for you, analyzing the data so that you can do the content lifting and create the other things that will help grow your audience and keep them interested in what you're doing. I hope you find this interesting or useful. Sane and Simple Podcasting has a whole bunch of episodes like this. videos and audio and whatnot. We're available in audio for some episodes, video for others. There's playlists with different kinds of things, like every day of the week, except for this week. We're doing I'm looking at my list. Workflow, ChatGPT, promote podcast promotions, YouTube, and and podcast editing. So I'm covering all of those in different ways to help you manage and grow your podcast so you can do all of those things quicker and simpler, so you can stay sane and focus on anything else in your life or in your business or community that you need to. I appreciate you watching this. Please do click like down below, subscribe so you don't miss any other lives or videos that I do. I'll be back tomorrow, the last day this week. I will be talking about podcast editing. And if you listened to yesterday's live, you already know what I'm talking about tomorrow. I'll have the link below. Thanks, bye.